Grace, you need to understand the seriousness of this. You've been careless, and it's not just about you anymore.
The afternoon sun hung low over the small house as Grace sat on the old wooden bench outside. Through the thin walls, she could hear her mother's excited voice. "Miriam, my clever girl," Mama Ruth said, laughing proudly. "You will go far in life. You're the light of this family." Grace smiled faintly as she picked beans into a bowl. She wanted to feel happy for her younger sister, but the words burned deep inside her chest. No one had ever called her the light of anything. When Papa Daniel came home that evening, he brought a small cake for Miriam's good school results. Grace watched quietly as everyone clapped and cheered. The smell of the sweet cake filled the room, but no one offered her a slice. She whispered, "Congratulations, Miriam," but her voice was lost in the laughter. Later that night, Mama Ruth called Grace inside. "You didn't even try to make yourself useful today. Look at your sister, always reading, always helping. What will you ever become, Grace?" Grace stared at the floor, her eyes stinging. She wanted to speak, to tell her mother she tried, but her voice refused to come out. When everyone went to sleep, she lay awake listening to the sounds of frogs outside. Through the thin curtain, she could see the moon staring down on her. Then she heard her mother's voice again, whispering to Papa Daniel, "That girl Grace brings nothing but shame. Sometimes I wonder if she's even my child." A sharp pain pierced Grace's chest. She pressed her pillow over her face, holding back a sob. Later, she crept outside, sitting under the moon. The air was cold and still. Maybe if she disappeared, no one would even notice. She wiped her tears and whispered into the night, "Maybe I was never meant to be loved." And at that moment, something inside Grace quietly broke. Years passed like dust carried by the wind. Miriam grew brighter and brighter, while Grace slowly faded into the background of her own family. Miriam finished school with honors. Grace barely passed. Still, she smiled at her sister, pretending not to feel the pain twisting inside her chest. At home, Mama Ruth's praise for Miriam became endless. "Our Miriam is a blessing," she would say to visitors. "Grace, she's just surviving." Grace began spending time with new friends, the type Mama Ruth warned her about. They laughed loudly, smoked behind old buildings, and promised her that she didn't need anyone's approval. For a while, she believed them. But at night, when she was alone, the emptiness returned. Meanwhile, Miriam got a good job. She bought Mama Ruth and Papa Daniel a new house and a shiny car. The whole neighborhood came to celebrate. Music filled the air, food was shared, and everyone danced, except Grace. She stood in a corner, watching her parents laugh as they cut a ribbon on the new house. Not once did Mama Ruth look for her eldest daughter. Grace's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "So this is what love looks like." She turned away, walking into the darkness of the evening, the sound of laughter chasing her into the silence. Grace's life became a blur of pain and bad choices. She started drinking more, smoking more, and caring less. The girl who once dreamed of being a teacher now struggled to even get out of bed. One afternoon, while scrolling through her phone, Grace saw Miriam's face on the screen, glowing and confident beside a handsome man. The caption read, "Love always wins." Her fingers trembled. Love always wins. What love had ever chosen her? At home, Mama Ruth and Papa Daniel were talking loudly, full of pride. "Miriam's husband is rich and kind," her mother bragged. God really blessed us through her. A few days later, Grace visited home, hoping maybe things had changed. When she arrived, Mama Ruth frowned. "What are you doing here, Grace? You look terrible. Don't bring shame to us before our guests," she hissed. Her father looked away. The visitors chuckled. Grace felt her heart collapse. She walked out quietly, her mother's words echoing in her ears. At home that night, Grace stared into a broken mirror. Her face looked unfamiliar, tired, empty, lost. Tears ran down her cheeks as she whispered, "Maybe I'll make them remember me somehow." The day was bright and full of laughter. Miriam's baby shower. Pictures flooded social media. The smiling couple, the fancy house, the balloons that read, "Welcome, little one." Grace scrolled through the photos, her heart pounding painfully. Each smile in those pictures felt like a knife. That night, she sat alone in her small apartment, the room dark except for the flickering light from a candle. On the table lay a small gun she had taken from a friend weeks ago. She touched it with shaking hands. Tonight, no one will forget me again. The street was quiet when Grace arrived at her sister's house past midnight. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. She knocked softly. Miriam's husband opened the door, half asleep. "Grace, what are you doing here at this hour?" "I just need to talk to her," she said, pushing past him. Miriam came down the stairs, her face pale. "Grace, what's wrong?" For a long moment, Grace couldn't speak. Then everything poured out. The years of rejection, the loneliness, the nights she cried herself to sleep. "You all forgot me," she screamed through her tears. "You took my life away before I even had one." "Grace, please," Miriam cried, reaching out to her. But Grace was gone, lost in her own darkness. A loud sound echoed through the night, then another, and another. By morning, neighbors gathered outside the beautiful house in shock. The laughter that once filled it was replaced by silence. Mama Ruth arrived later, her face pale, her hands trembling. When she saw the bodies covered with white sheets, she fell to her knees. Her cries tore through the air, "My child! My children!" But it was too late. The love she withheld had grown into pain, and that pain had consumed everything. When love is shared unequally, one heart becomes full and another becomes empty. And when emptiness grows in silence, it can destroy what love once tried to build.
Thanks for watching. Follow Tales by Amuche and uncover African tales filled with secrets, lessons, and wonder.